when he was photographed in a fender bender with his mistress. Adrian Chung leaned an arm on the car window and smiled at the paparazzi. "If you've got a scandal on me, remember to find my wife. She loves handling this kind of news." When people in our circle mentioned me, the wife, they would say in unison, "She's a sparrow who turned into a phoenix. How could she ever bear to get a divorce?" No one remembered that when Adrian married me, he had graciously introduced me to them. "This is my wife. She's young. Please look after her in the future." Everyone thought I would throw money at the paparazzi, as I had before, to smooth over this latest scandal and continue being a seemingly perfect high society couple with Adrian. But this time, I just pushed open the door to his grandfather's study. "It's been 3 years. It's time you let me go." The newspapers in Hong Kong have an unwritten rule. If a reporter's sales are down for the month, they go and stake out Mr. Chung of the Apex Group. He's guaranteed to have a new mistress every month, and he parades her around, making it easy to get a photo. A man having a bit of a scandal is normal, but his wife, she has to maintain her dignity, her good name. If you get a picture of her husband's affair, just take it to her and name your price. She'll pay in full. But while the old stories were common, the situations were always new. When a rookie from the New Territories Daily took a video to Adrian and was sent to me, I had just gotten home from the office. From our villa on Victoria Peak, the entire harbor skyline was laid out before me. The voice on the phone continued, inexperienced yet brazenly demanding. "Mrs. Chung, 2 million is nothing. It's the price of a handbag for you. Just 2 million. And you can buy off your husband's scandal. It's a bargain. If you've made up your mind, just call this number." This paparazzo wasn't very bright. He had followed him once, and the second time he had brazenly knocked on Adrian's car window. Adrian's car was actually hard to recognize. He changed cars frequently, with hundreds in his garage. But for some reason, he had been driving the same one for the past few days. In the video the paparazzo sent me, Adrian had rolled down the window. In the passenger seat was a scantily clad woman. Last month, when I had received a photo, a popular starlet from the mainland had been sitting in that seat. Adrian took off his sunglasses, revealing a nearly flawless face to the camera. He beckoned to the paparazzo. As he got closer, Adrian said in a coaxing, lazy tone, "Newbie, so clueless. After you take the picture, you're supposed to go to my wife. You won't get a penny from me. Don't have my wife's contact information." He took a piece of paper, scribbled down a few numbers, and tossed it into the paparazzo's hands. Then, he looked at the woman beside him and clicked his tongue. "Get out." The woman leaned closer, her voice cloying. "Mr. Chung, didn't you say 3 days? It's only been a few hours." Adrian threw a card at her and pressed the unlock button. "You get photographed after just a few hours. Get out before I have to throw you out." Scram. I turned off the video, my face calm, and sat down at the dining table. The servants had laid out dinner, dish by dish. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 8. I looked up at the gift Adrian had brought me from France 7 years ago, swinging with a faded rhythm. I was 17 when I was accepted to study at the University of Hong Kong. I was 18 when I met Adrian. At that time, besides his face, he was completely low-key. He clearly knew everything, but he would pretend to be clumsy, always saying he had forgotten what he had learned, and rely on me to teach him. Within half a month, someone who knew him secretly told me, "You think he's just a pretty face. He's the son of the Apex Group. His father is running for a committee seat." Later, Adrian left the campus, but he wouldn't listen to reason. He drove back and forth between the university and Central every day. In those few years, we argued occasionally, but we never stopped loving each other. My heart would close, then open, then close again. At 25, after a long and winding road, after 100 trials, I married Adrian. The wedding of the century. There are still newspapers that have preserved the memory. One small tabloid, to grab attention, had written a headline that overshadowed the major papers. It was sensational, but disrespectful. The next morning, Adrian saw the paper, and after reading it, he placed his water glass on top of it. Later, I learned that that sensational paper was the last one that tabloid ever published. One small thing after another. Looking back from the beginning, I suddenly realized how much Adrian and I had once loved each other. But how had it come to this? to this faded clock, its movements so weak. In the silent hall, the elevator number flickered. When it reached the 3rd floor, the doors opened. Adrian's suit jacket was draped over his arm. The overhead light in the elevator did nothing to diminish the sharpness of his features. I glanced at him, then looked away, continuing to focus on the dishes on the table. A minute later, I heard the sound of clothes being thrown onto the sofa. Then, the scent of a particular incense and the warmth of a man's body enveloped me. Adrian stood behind me, his hands on the table, as if holding me in his arms. His voice was nonchalant. "Good evening, Mrs. Chung. Let's see. How much is this latest scandal worth?" The phone was on the table. He tapped it a few times and went into the messages. 2 million. The reporter's appetites these days are smaller than your dinner. Anyone who didn't know better would think my value has depreciated. I put down my chopsticks, my back straight, keeping a fist's distance between my back and his chest. I didn't answer him. Instead, I changed the subject. "I don't approve of Miranda Jones being parachuted into the position of head of the publicity department. I will reject her application." Sure enough, at the mention of that name, he straightened up, and the suffocating presence instantly disappeared. He sat down opposite me, his hands on the back of the chair, his gaze on the beautiful night view outside the window. "Her affairs are not for you to worry about." Or, his gaze returned to me, his chin resting on his hand. "Do you have a problem with her?" I looked straight into his eyes, searching for something, but found nothing. Outsiders only knew that Adrian had been changing mistresses constantly these past 2 years. No one knew he was doing it to cover for Miranda Jones. 2 years ago, he had sent her abroad to study, to gild her resume, and now she was to be parachuted into the group. It wasn't that I had a problem with her, but it was a matter of fact. The hiring standards at the Apex Group were extremely strict. A first degree from a non-top 30 QS university was not even considered. Miranda had a high school education. She had worked at a department store at 18. The school she had gone to abroad was also a diploma mill. There was no way to justify making an exception for her. My voice was very faint. "I'm discussing business with you. I'm not bringing personal feelings into it." He didn't reply. After a moment, I heard a voice message from his phone. The voice was extremely coquettish and cloying. "Mr. Chung, I left my panties in your car. When would be a good time for me to pick them up?" The sound from the phone speaker seemed to be deliberately turned up, echoing in my ears. He looked at me, brought the phone to his lips, his voice lazy. "Wrong number, miss." I looked at his cold expression, trying to remember the way he used to love me. Actually, in the beginning, he would still feel remorse and admit his mistakes. The gift he had someone send to Miranda was extremely expensive and had unintentionally taken up a spot I had originally reserved. The rich circle was too small. A single clue could solve a major case. Adrian had driven home, handing over all his bank cards and passwords. She helped me with a small matter. My assistant, Ken, picked out the gift. "I'll deal with him later." He had only given a brief explanation, but I had believed him. There was no reason not to. But that day, somehow learning that Adrian and I had had a big fight, Miranda had knelt at the gate of our villa in the rain. "Mrs. Chung, there's really nothing between Mr. Chung and me. You have to believe us." The more one tries to hide, the more one reveals. Anger can burn away clarity. So I didn't see the flicker of pity in his eyes as he looked down from the French window that day. When a man pities a woman, it is the beginning of a romance between two people, and a dangerous sign for 3. None of this mattered. The hardest days were long past. If I remember correctly, today is November 27th. There are only a few days left until my 3-year agreement with his grandfather is up. I looked at Adrian, about to speak. He suddenly received a call. The voice on the other end was faint, but I could make out Miranda's voice. "The power in my house is out. It's so dark. I'm a little scared." "Wait for me. I'm coming," he said, standing up. He glanced at me. I swallowed the words I was about to say and remained silent. He then left without a backward glance. After he left, I drove to the Chung family's old estate. The old estate was a collection of century-old Western-style houses. The interior is a mix of Chinese and Western, half old, half new. When I entered, his mother was sitting on the sofa, a maid massaging her shoulders. Hearing the sound, she turned to look at me. then closed her eyes again. I didn't want to bother her, so I went straight up to the second floor study. Grandfather. I considered my words. The 3 years are up. I want to leave the Chung family. Back then, I knew that he had publicly sent Miranda away, but in reality, he had sent her abroad to study. Knowing that his flight was going back and forth between Hong Kong and Australia while I was in the hospital, my heart had completely died. At that time, I had gone to his grandfather. Just as the Chung family was facing internal and external turmoil, he had asked me to stay for another 3 years. If in those 3 years Adrian didn't change, he would allow me to leave. The rocking chair creaked. The old man opened his eyes and looked at me. I thought that after 3 years, you would have gotten used to it. Why do you still want to leave? Seeing that I didn't speak, he sighed. When you wanted to marry into the Chung family, you should have expected all this. Look at Eleanor. She was even more fiery than you in her youth. But in the end, didn't she hold on to the title of Mrs. Chung? So many illegitimate children couldn't make a ripple. The son that came out of her womb, Adrian, is still the only heir of the Chung family. Eleanor was Adrian's mother. This woman, who now devoted herself to prayer, had been a woman of extraordinary courage in her youth. Do you know how she did it? How? Because I decreed it. As long as I decreed it, no one could take the position of Mrs. Chung from you. With my support, those women are no threat to you. Besides, I'm not talking about feelings with you. I'm talking about a deal. You've done an excellent job these past few years. The company, the family, you've held it all together. It would be time, consuming and costly for the Chung family to train someone new. You leaving the Chung family, you can calculate for yourself whether it's worth it. If we weren't talking about feelings, only a deal. This was undoubtedly the most profitable one. I poured him tea and said softly, you know, if we weren't talking about feelings, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I had also thought about it. With the title of the legitimate wife firmly in my hands, no one from the outside could ever enter the Chung family's doors. But I didn't marry Adrian to become Mrs. Chung. I became Mrs. Chung because I married him. Back then, I had pushed him away, telling him his marriage was not free, that he had no right to date me. He had frowned. How am I not free? If I want to marry you, I have plenty of ideas. You're the one who, if I'm not looking for a second, is ready to marry someone else. Do you think I'm useless? I didn't believe him. What good ideas could get past so many obstacles? Later, he didn't mention it again. Just took over the Apex group step by step, slowly entering the core of the Chung family. And after graduation, I also successfully joined the Apex group, starting as an intern. At that time, I worked and trained during the day, and at night, he would give me private lessons. I grew very quickly. By the time we brought up marriage again, he was sitting in the Chung family home, and no one dared to object. But he respected his grandfather. So the next day, he came up with a plan to make the old man see reality. You little brat, did you really think I was old and senile? I don't know which entertainment company you found that pretty boy from, but you were holding his hand, about to go and register your marriage with him. Did you think I was scared? I was just turning a blind eye, indulging you, and you're still not satisfied. It's only been a few years, and now you're talking about divorce. Let me make myself clear. If you leave the Chung family, I will not let you come back. Think carefully before you decide. I lowered my head. The past 7 years of my marriage flashing before my eyes like a movie. Leaving the Chung family is something I have been waiting for 3 years. He waved his hand. Finish the work you have on hand. Someone will contact you then. When I came downstairs, his mother was still sitting on the sofa. I walked to the door, then turned back. I won't be able to wish you well in the future. I hope you will always be in good health. With that, I turned and walked out. The living room of the Chung residence was dimly lit. Eleanor was shrouded in darkness, looking up at the space in front of her. All the light in the room seemed to have been carried away by the figure hurrying out. She watched and watched, and it was as if she saw a young Eleanor walking out. Her maid, Lily, bent down and whispered in her ear, "Miss, it's late. You should go to bed." The living room was dark again. Eleanor looked away. "Let's go." Sitting in the car, I remembered I had to finish the work on hand. I called the paparazzo that night and told him to come and get the check the next morning, buying off all of Adrian's scandals from that day. The next time I received a message from Adrian was a few days later. After Miranda returned, he had been much more restrained. Remembering my deal with his grandfather, I had the driver make a detour to pick him up. The door was open when I arrived. A group of people were playing cards inside, including Miranda. She had just won a hand, and the man opposite her was complimenting her. Sister-in-law is on a lucky streak tonight. You've been winning all night. I'm about to lose my shirt. Please have mercy. Miranda smiled and was about to speak. Adrian looked up and saw me at the door. He took a drag from his cigarette and cursed. The one standing at the door is your real sister-in-law. Are you blind? No wonder you've been losing all night. The man saw me and stood up in a panic. Sister-in-law. Miranda saw me and her face turned pale. Seeing this scene, I knew he was doing it on purpose. He always deliberately made me see these things, all to force me to divorce him and give up my position. But he refused to get a divorce. His reason was simple. She's young and inexperienced. She's fine to keep around for fun. But who would seriously marry her? One Mrs. Chung is enough. I scanned the room, left the driver who had followed me behind, and instructed him to pick up Adrian later. Then, with a polite nod, I turned and left. Just as I reached the door, Miranda blocked my path. The 18-year-old girl from 2 years ago was now only 20, still fresh and vibrant. She was slightly out of breath, her voice soft. Mrs. Chung, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to destroy your family. I have tried to leave, tried to forget, but I can't. I can't forget Mr. Chung. I love him very much. But please believe me. I truly have no intention of destroying your family. Between Mr. Chung and me, we just met too late. If he had met me back then, I would have been Mrs. Chung too. I'm sorry. That's not what I mean. Anyway, I sincerely want to apologize to you. If there is a next life, I will be a cow or a horse to atone for my sins. But in this life, I can't give him back to you. I'm sorry. I looked her up and down. The girl who could only afford clothes that cost $30 or $50 2 years ago was now dressed head to toe in understated luxury. The shoes on her feet were worth 3 years of her salary at the department store. There are many sparrows. I was one. And now Miranda was another. I didn't speak. I didn't deign to speak to her. I would not try to awaken a mistress with words of morality and conscience. If she knew how to write the characters for morality, she would not be so happy to be someone's mistress. You should divorce Mr. Chung. Her voice came from behind me. Let him go. At that moment, the people in the room were looking at each other. Someone dared to look at the cold-faced Adrian. Brother Chung, aren't you going to chase after your wife? Once a woman gets angry, she might ask for a divorce. He looked at the picture of the $2 million check in his hand, his thoughts unreadable. After a moment, he laughed. Divorce. Isn't that great? To be free and unburdened. Adrian was the last person in the Chung family to know about Ava's divorce. When he heard the news, he lifted his eyes and looked at the person who had brought it. What kind of joke is this? Chloe said dramatically. What joke? Grandfather has already agreed. Besides, you've been turning the house upside down for the past 2 years. All for a divorce. Right. If you ask me, just get it over with. All men get tired of their old wives in the end. She leaned on the table, her voice conspiratorial. My friend, Kitty, is still waiting for you. She hasn't gotten married all these years. If you get a divorce, you should give her a chance. Since she was a child, Chloe had had a sister-in-law in mind. Who knew that Ava would come out of nowhere? On the day of Adrian's wedding, she was so angry she could have gnashed her teeth. Yet she was forced to smile and give a large red envelope. Poor Kitty. From that day on, she had channeled her grief into strength, rejecting all men and becoming a career woman. Adrian told her to get out with a headache. Chloe grabbed her bag and sauntered out. On her way out, she ran into Miranda. Perhaps she had overheard their conversation, for there was a smile on her face that she hadn't had time to wipe away. Chloe crossed her arms and smiled. Wow. Your mouth is so wide. Like a man eating flour. Are you going to eat a child? You overestimate yourself. Even if Ava gets divorced 18 times, the position of my sister-in-law will never be yours. Miranda's expression was unchanged, her tone gentle. Then who will it be? Your friend, Kitty. She seems even more overconfident. Chloe clapped her hands. Sure enough. All mistresses have a face as thick as a city wall. You're not even worthy of carrying my friend Kitty's shoes. Miranda watched her go, her gaze far away. Adrian had sent her to study abroad, bought her a house, and let her live a life of luxury. And for her, he was fighting with Ava to get a divorce. It was Ava then. And it was her now. If Ava could be Mrs. Chung, why couldn't she? 2 years ago, she had knelt on Victoria Peak, looking at the luxurious villa before her. At that time, she had thought, one day, the doors of this villa will be open for me. After his grandfather agreed, I had no opportunity to discuss the divorce with Adrian. I knew he had gotten the news. I had thought he would immediately come to negotiate with me. But several days passed, and he remained in Macau. But even in the worst case scenario, the law was on my side. If a couple has been separated for 2 years, one party can file for divorce without the other's consent. But I guess that neither Adrian nor the Chung family would let it come to that. If he had agreed immediately, the divorce would have been over in an instant. So I waited. One day, he finally pushed open the door of the villa. There was no need for pleasantries. He got straight to the point. You'll get nothing from a divorce. Are you acting out of spite? Before we got married, his grandfather had one condition. A prenuptial agreement. If we ever became estranged, I would not take a single penny. Adrian had refused, but his grandfather had not budged. He did not trust him and would not tie the immense fortune of the Apex Group to his personal feelings. Later, Adrian had compromised and set up a trust fund for me with his personal funds. The trust fund was my personal property before the marriage. It included cash, stocks, and real estate. After years of management and appreciation, it was now worth nearly $8 billion. Although $8 billion was nothing compared to the vast wealth of the Apex Group and the Chung family. At the time, it was all the liquid cash Adrian could mobilize after his struggle. I hadn't wanted it back then, but he had smiled and told me, compared to a man, money is a woman's greatest source of security. He had given an inappropriate example. I may betray you, but money will not. The closest of kin, the most distant of strangers, is a married couple. No matter how much we had loved each other, it did not stop us from facing each other with cold glares and drawn swords now. I looked at him for a long time, remembering the crazed Ava of the past. In the first year, my extreme emotional misophobia had taken over. I had cursed him with the most vicious words. I wanted him to die, to be run over by a car the next day and torn to pieces. Why should he be able to live so freely after destroying my entire faith in love? At my most painful, I had driven my car, wanting to die with him, to go to hell so I wouldn't have to suffer every day. When I was clear-headed, I had only one thought. Thank God we didn't have children. Thank God that child was never born. I looked at him. We had argued all we could argue. All that was left was calm. You should thank me. In the future, you won't have to sneak around with your women. With a click, he lit a cigarette and looked at me through the smoke. You're right. I'll thank you on behalf of Miranda for making way for her. How very magnanimous. I ignored his sarcasm. The date is in 3 days. I hope. He picked up his jacket and walked out. As you wish. After pushing the door open, he paused and looked back at me. Ava, don't regret it. But if you do regret it, and you beg me, I'll always be soft-hearted. After all, we're husband and wife. No one can ever surpass you. On the day of the court hearing, Adrian didn't show up. An hour later, I received the divorce decree and drove back to the villa. However, the group had important matters recently, so the news of the divorce would be temporarily suppressed. When I got home, there was an unexpected guest in the living room. I frowned and called for security. He explained, she is Mr. Chung's keycard. Miranda looked up at me, her chest puffed out. I'm here to get the enamel jewelry Mr. Chung bought at the last auction. She stroked the genuine leather sofa. He said he was going to give it to me. But you've been hogging it. This villa was in my name. The day I decided to get a divorce, I had already thrown out all of Adrian's things. The expensive ones I hadn't thrown away. They were probably at his place in Repulse Bay. I didn't waste my breath on her. Get out, Ava. She no longer called me Mrs. Chung. We're both women. I know what you're thinking. You've been holding on for so many years, refusing to get a divorce. This time, You're deliberately bringing up divorce just to get your husband to come back to you. This playing hard, too. Get trick won't fool anyone. I tilted my head and called out, Wendy. A moment later, a woman came up from downstairs. I glanced at her. Her eyes lit up. She threw down her rag, stepped forward, and dragged Miranda out. You crazy woman. Wendy and Lily were old retainers of the Chung family, brought over by Adrian's mother from her own family. Lily was calm and intelligent, while Wendy was a force to be reckoned with. The two of them were his mother's right and left hands. Back in the day, when his mother was dealing with those mistresses, Wendy's hands had scratched the faces of countless homewreckers. After I joined the Chung family, Adrian's mother had sent her to me. Unfortunately, I couldn't be bothered to make a big fuss, so she had been useless all these years. Today, I let her relive her former glory. From outside, I could hear Wendy's powerful curses. You damn bitch. So young and already so desperate for a man. Even when the mistress industry was at its peak in Hong Kong, no shameless homewrecker dared to come to the door. You have a father, but no one to raise you. Even the landfill won't take you. Mandarin limited her performance. She switched to Cantonese, every word sharp. One day, I would have to ask her to curse Adrian for me. Miranda had a small following online. She had created a persona for herself. In her blog posts, she was a girl from the bottom rungs of society who, by a chance encounter, had won the heart of a powerful and wealthy boyfriend. That boyfriend loved her dearly. He was her benefactor, her lover, the one who had guided her all the way up. Unsuspecting netizens gushed. Sister, you must be extremely outstanding to be loved like this. She accepted all the praise. He showed me the world, taught me about people and relationships, so that even if we don't last, I can still live a happy life. She had woven a dream of a prince and a poor girl, as if she were truly the heroine of a romance novel. When I came to Hong Kong at 18, I had hoped for a bright future, to put down roots here. But after a decade of twists and turns, I think I'm a little homesick. After settling everything, I set off for my hometown of Shuqing. Back then, besides the Chung family's disapproval of the marriage, my own parents were also against it. It was Adrian, flying back and forth through the seasons, who had asked them to entrust their daughter to him. After visiting my parents, I set my sights on Shanghai. If you don't move, your brain will die. Neither my education nor my experience would allow me to live a mediocre second half of my life. In those few years with the Chung family, at the beginning, I would even hold my wine glass incorrectly at banquets. At that time, Adrian would stand behind me. His presence was enough that no one dared to laugh at me. But I was unwilling to be outdone. In time, I could also navigate the circles of wealthy wives with ease. In the early days of my company in Shanghai, I made no secret of using the Chung family and Adrian's name, leveraging their influence to solve many problems. With no lack of funds or connections, I had finalized all the details within a month. Besides work, I was also busy with myself. I have to admit, even though that marriage was rotten to the core, after the divorce, I still suffered an emotional backlash. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night, feeling like I was floating, my heart so empty I couldn't find my footing. In those 7 years of marriage, especially the last 3, I was almost like an empty shell. Now, I had to slowly fill that shell, both the emotional void and the empty spaces in my life. I began to constantly reinvent myself, reading, traveling, socializing, becoming more like the person I used to be. Once a person has the strength to support themselves, the thorns of the past seem to become mere embellishments. One day, the phone on my desk suddenly rang. I answered, and the person on the other end spoke with a familiar accent. Madam, it's me, Secretary Song. His words were rushed. The master is drunk and insists I call you to ask which kind of hangover cure he should take. He says if he takes the wrong one, he'll die. From the other end of the line, I could faintly hear a mumble. Tell her to come back. I looked at the number. Secretary Song. Yes, madam. Please speak. Oh, right. The master wants you to come back to Hong Kong. When are you coming back? I said with a blank expression. I've been so busy lately. I completely forgot about you. Secretary Song. What? Before he could finish, he looked at his phone and saw that he could no longer get through to the madam's number. She had blocked and deleted him. He held the phone, deep in thought. The master was the first person the madam had blocked. He was the last. The master was the head of the chicken. And he was the tail. This was, in a way, an honor to be proud of. A few days later, a series of strange packages began to arrive at the company. Inside were items of great value. A Harry Winston diamond necklace, a Hermes lizard skin Birkin bag, and many other designer jewelry pieces. I had seen this kind of apology before, but back then, he had made a gesture, and I had accepted it. We were both happy. Now, this kind of thing was just annoying. I checked the company's accounts, then sold the pile of things and got a sum of money. After about 2 weeks of this, Adrian appeared. He came uninvited to an investor's dinner, standing there like a door god. Everyone stood up to greet him. Their gazes shifted between me and him, but no one dared to bring up the topic of our divorce. The news of the Apex Group's public divorce had already made several rounds in the mainland news. A few days ago, I had heard a lot of gossip from Mrs. Sue. No one had expected that the Chung family, who had wanted a peaceful divorce, would be disrupted by a little upstart. It turned out that after hearing the news of the divorce, Miranda had eagerly posted a photo of herself with Adrian online, although he only showed half of his back and it was blurred. Sharp-eyed people had figured it out. Energized netizens had divided the work, analyzing her more than 1,000 posts. A PowerPoint presentation of the timelines went viral. She had created a separate account to argue with them, but it was dug up and she was publicly shamed. She had said, "He doesn't love his wife. If she can't keep her man, who can she blame?" Someone had replied, "Hilarious. He doesn't love his wife, but he loves a bitch like you." Not trying to defend the trash. That necklace you were showing off in March was made from the scraps of the one his wife wore to the anniversary celebration last year. Wow. So much love. Where the money is, the love is. Let's just assume that. Last year, Adrian donated a golden Buddha statue in his wife's name at the Tsc Shan Monastery, worth 30 million. The arguments went on and on. In the end, I couldn't be bothered to listen anymore. Looking at Adrian, the divorce and the affair seemed to have no effect on him. In fact, because of the confrontation between the netizens and Miranda, the word cheater had become a romantic affair for him, a way to prove his charm. And the same sinner, Miranda, had been attacked until she was black and blue. Just like now, he was smiling nonchalantly, as if nothing had happened. The footsteps behind me were unhurried. I stopped. "Just say what you're here for. I don't have time to beat around the bush." He put down his wine glass and said slowly, "You don't know how the media is praising you. They say you have such. Everyone knows the Chung family has a good woman who would rather break than bend. They praise you. And in doing so, they drag me through the mud. The day you left, Wendy stood on the 3rd floor and cursed me for half a day. I thought, a divorce, a trip away, all these years of anger, with so many people helping you vent. You should have calmed down by now. So, I came to take you back." Hearing these words, I realized I was angry, but my soul was numb to him. I had gambled everything for a resolute departure, but in his eyes, it was just a tantrum. As long as I calmed down, nothing had happened. For a moment, I suddenly understood. In all these years with Adrian, both in love and in marriage, perhaps I was the only one who had ever seen it as a faith, as my everything. So the destruction and collapse had only ever swept over me. Adrian had also made vows before a priest, but he probably never believed that love was eternal, that marriage was about fidelity. Having figured everything out, I quickly turned my head and wiped away the tears I couldn't hold back. "Divorcing you means, Adrian, that we have no connection for the rest of our lives." I collected myself and said, word by word, "You think divorce is a game. I have never thrown a tantrum with my marriage. I'm telling you, I don't regret it. Not now. Not in the future. Never, ever will I regret it." He grabbed my arm, as if my anger was of no consequence, and said helplessly, "All right, I'm the one who regrets it." "Okay." I spoke too soon. "These past 2 months without you, I'm not used to it." I couldn't take it anymore. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. The crisp sound of the slap echoed in the quiet forest path. His face was turned to the side. He raised his fingers and touched the spot. "Is that enough to make you feel better? If not, then hit me again." Once you've calmed down, come back to Hong Kong with me. Who knew what was wrong with Adrian? But he had a knack for being a persistent pest. He would fly to Shanghai every few days. No more mistresses. No more side pieces. It was as if without me, he and his mistresses had lost their passion. Even their illicit affairs had lost their flavor. I paid him no mind. During my breaks, I went on a planned trip to Inner Mongolia. Tired of the hustle and bustle of the city. Tired of the information overload of daily life. A person needs to be purified by nature. I chose a yurt, with wind, light, grasslands, and lakes, and the slow passage of time. Surprisingly, on this trip, I ran into Chloe. She was clearly not expecting it either. After 2 days of seeing each other, she awkwardly struck up a conversation. But her opening line was not very pleasant. You look much better after divorcing my cousin. I covered my face with a straw hat, my voice muffled. Aren't you looking for your friend Kitty anymore? She sat down with a plop, complaining and excited at the same time. Did you know? Kitty doesn't like men. She has a girlfriend and she kept it from me. I was a fool for so many years. I thought she liked my cousin. I had no idea I was just being delusional. Once her floodgates were open, a torrent of news poured out. For the next 2 days, she followed me around like a shadow. I thought she was going to be a lobbyist for Adrian. Hearing this, she waved her hand. You underestimate me. If he can't win you back, it's his own incompetence. I'm not getting involved. Who knew that a few days later, Adrian would appear in Inner Mongolia again like a lingering ghost. In front of Chloe. I didn't hold back. After cursing him out, I turned and left. Chloe patted his shoulder and said, Cousin. Adrian looked away from me and said patiently, What is it? If you're sick, you should see a doctor, she said with pity. Not come to Inner Mongolia to look at cows. I had no intention of being celibate for the rest of my life. And when work stress got too high, I would want to find some handsome young men to have a little romance with. Evan was a newcomer at the entertainment company I invested in. He was very well behaved and beautiful. I made an exception and let him stay by my side. After hearing the news of my new relationship, Adrian flew to Shanghai overnight. His expression was calm. He made a couple of simple comments. Powdered face, glib tongue, then flew back to Hong Kong. Evan was not intimidated. He leaned against my shoulder, his expression innocent. He praised me for being handsome and said I have a sweet mouth. But you like me this way, don't you, sis? He thought everyone else was a fool, and only he was clever. You're not using your brain. A 20-year-old boy is just after your money and resources. Do you really think he's in love with you? How could I tell him that this was a great thing? I had too little sincerity left. Love had disappeared, and I had nothing but money. Now, I was happy to have a man talk to me about money and resources, rather than love. The next time he flew to Shanghai, he saw the person standing next to me. This time, he frowned slightly. You changed him. Evan was good in every way, except he wasn't honest. At first, I had thought he had a clean background, a blank slate in the entertainment industry with no connections, which was pitiful. So it was only right for me to support him. But later, I happened to learn that the Su family behind him was famous throughout Shanghai. A young master entering the entertainment industry was just for fun. Yet he was treating me like a fool. How could I tolerate that? The day I sentenced him to death, he was very aggrieved, drenched like a drowned rat. If I had told you I was rich, you wouldn't have even looked at me. That's not how it works, no matter the reason. A relationship between people should not start with deception. Compared to his excitement and sadness, I was as calm as if I had missed out on an insignificant investment project. There were too many handsome and obedient men. If one fell, thousands more would rise. I nodded at Adrian, very generously. The last one wasn't well behaved. I got a more obedient one this time. We could actually talk so peacefully, as if the divorce and the breakdown were things from a past life. Adrian's brow relaxed slightly, his expression still calm as he commented, A pretty boy. Looks good but not useful. It was a very certain expression, as if to say, Ava, play if you want to play. You're not really serious. After what you went through with me, you're still interested in this kind of thing. This time, my relationship lasted a while, long enough for Adrian to urge me several times. Why haven't you broken up yet? Still with that same certain and condescending attitude, as if my relationship in his eyes, was just a tantrum. Something to be played with and then gotten over. I couldn't take it anymore. Are you sick? He was shameless, without a hint of guilt. Yes, lovesick. I paid no attention to his emotions. To be so obsessed with an ex-wife after a separation, it would be a joke to anyone. Occasionally, he would call late at night, disturbing my sleep, just to ask again and again, when are you coming back to Hong Kong? Perhaps the late night is when the heart is most vulnerable. His apologies at night seemed a little more sincere, not as disingenuous as during the day. A few times, his voice trembled as he said, word by word, Ava, I regret it. When he woke up, he would pretend nothing had happened. A few times, I received a call from his mother. Her tone was very flat. Adrian is injured. Are you coming to Hong Kong to see him? Before I could reply, she continued on her own. It's fine if you don't. He won't die. I didn't care what happened in his life. My own life was back on track. My company was growing bigger and bigger. I had close friends and a lover who made me happy. I would no longer be filled with anxiety in the middle of the night. For a long time after that, Adrian and I maintained a strange equilibrium. He wanted to fly to Shanghai. He wanted to go back to Hong Kong. He came and went as he pleased. I didn't interfere in the slightest. I knew what he was waiting for the day I would wake up, turn back, and get back on his pirate ship. But, Adrian, a person does not step into the same wrong path twice. Adrian came down from the annual meeting and drove all the way to the old family home. He walked into the grand hall. The lights were still dim, as if it were a place that had not seen the sun for years. He didn't much like the old house. He preferred the villa he had lived in after they were married. After Ava had sold it, he had bought it back, but it never felt the same. For 2 years, he had traveled back and forth between Shanghai and Hong Kong, shamelessly supervising her. She was too free. Sometimes she would disappear without a trace, and he couldn't find her even if he searched the whole world. Ava had been under his wing since she was 18. At that time, she was very well behaved, with big, innocent eyes that looked at people with seriousness and affection. Even when she threw a tantrum, she was easy to appease. Sometimes, he didn't even have to do anything. She would convince herself and then hug his waist. Her threats fierce, but utterly harmless. If there's a next time, I won't forgive you so quickly. He had never known that Ava was such a free wind. In these 2 years, she had avoided him like the plague, but she would often send his mother holiday greetings. When he couldn't find her, he would go to Eleanor. He leaned against the sofa, his head bowed, idly playing with a string of prayer beads in his hand. The beads had been polished to a beautiful sheen by Eleanor. He didn't believe in gods or Buddhas. He was just playing with them. If Eleanor had seen him, she would probably have frowned at him disapprovingly. After Ava left, she often looked at him that way. But this time, Eleanor sat down and said nothing. A wedding invitation was on the table. It didn't look like a Hong Kong design. The cover was a glaring red. Gaudy. His eyes skimmed over the invitation. He decided to use it to start a conversation and asked casually, "Whose wedding invitation is this? So grand." Eleanor looked at him in surprise. "It's Ava's. She's getting married. You didn't know?" His gaze froze. He bent down and reached out to touch it. A thin piece of paper. He didn't open it for a long time. The contents remained hidden. Eleanor looked at his expression, and a sudden realization dawned on her. She calmly took the invitation from his hand. "I see. You weren't invited." As she took it, a corner of the invitation flipped open. Ava's name fell into his eyes. Eleanor walked to the stairs. Lily helped her up. From the second floor landing, she looked down. Adrian was still motionless, half in light, half in shadow. Lily couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Why did it have to come to this? You don't know. Just the other day he told me that Ava was being much nicer to him. He said, "Lily, Ava still has feelings for me." A grown man, as happy as a child. Eleanor looked away, her voice flat. "You're wasting your sympathy on him. Ava is far away in the mainland and doesn't know. But you do, don't you?" When Ava was dating, was he really sitting at home, a lonely widower? Adrian didn't move for a long time. His hands and feet were numb. He had thought that he and Ava had an unspoken understanding, that no matter how much they fought, no one else would enter their hearts. So when they got divorced, He didn't think it was a big deal. People break up and get back together all the time. So when she was dating other men, he was always arrogant, looking down on them. Those men were just her pastimes. She would get tired of them and come back to her senses. In the end, whether they divorced or remarried, the only people who would be entangled for the rest of their lives were him and her. He thought he would have her forever, but at this moment, he was facing an eternal loss. Ava, at some point, had walked away from the rotten marriage and love, leaving him trapped in the illusion of still being loved. How could she allow love to happen again? How could someone replace him, erase her fear of marriage, and give her boundless courage? The wedding invitation on the table was still bright, but it was getting further and further away from him, as if it were proclaiming her happiness, mocking his unworthiness. He began to hate her, a hatred born of love, a fear in his heart. Such hatred. It burned his heart and lungs. He could not resent it, could not let it go. For the rest of his life, it would keep him from a peaceful sleep.